All right, now it's recording. Admit all of them. Woohoo!
Hello, everybody. Welcome to ABC. We're going to get started in a second. I'm glad y'all here on prompt time today. You know what I'm saying? I'm excited.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Mighty Africans, mighty Africans.
What's up, Lauren? We got Jada in here. What's up, Jada and Nora? We got the sisters in here. Brother Isaiah up in here.
We are back with another rendition of our hard teaching series, our political education series that features guest speakers, some of the most thorough and brilliant and dedicated warriors among our people. Tonight's topic is Mumia Jamal and MOVE. We are going to be diving into a very, very critical and to a certain extent understudied topic. And we hope that after tonight's webinar or tonight's session, we can change that, right? The goal is not to just raise awareness for the sake of raising awareness. The goal is to raise awareness with the intention of us directing time and energy to studying it more, right? So yeah, I'm excited to get this underway. Y'all already know who I am by now, hopefully. I'm the Political Education Director for the African Black Coalition, Makona Sandaji. And it is my honor to just share this virtual space with you all, with a mighty African word such as Honey Blu. So I'm gonna let Honey Blu go ahead and introduce yourself. Just give us the basic rundown. And then once you do that, we can go ahead and get started.
Absolutely. So peace and Black power, everybody. My name is Honey Blu. I am a student. I am an organizer and just an artist. I go to Cal State Long Beach. I'm an Africana Studies major, and I'm an organizer with New Era Long Beach, which is the Long Beach chapter from the New Era Nation, founded in Detroit. And just a humble servant as always. It's a blessing to be able to hold space with other Black women, Black men, Black people, to not only just be amongst each other and to feel that energy, but to educate and to get educated together in the same space with these critical topics that have been provided by ABC. So I just want to thank the African Black Coalition for hosting these critical discussions and classes for our people that we may not get in the institution, or we may not get in everyday scholarship activity or what have you. So it's just my share with y'all today the research on MOVE and Mumia. And I don't want to give too long of an intro because we got a lot to cover today. But yeah, so we could get started because
come on, let's get straight to it. We here.
So basically, I'm going to share my screen with you guys. We have a PowerPoint here, and then we're just kind of gonna go down and start diving deep into this. So let me just share my screen with you all. And this is also, a interactive class. So if at any point in time you have a comment, if you have anything you want to say, please feel free to put in the chat box any questions or comments you have, or you can unmute your mic, raise your hand, anything of that nature. So the title of this is On a Move with Mumia Jamal. Here we have a good picture of just the folks in the MOVE organization. So let's get into the inception of MOVE and exactly what it is and what the org is. So, all right. So I'm going to start off with this quote by our good brother Mumia Jamal. And it says, what MOVE represents is that people can move away from the system and use the principle of life to survive. MOVE believes that this entire reform world system is a threat to life and needs to be confronted, and they'll begin to resist it by any means necessary. Mumia Jamal. journalist, political prisoner, African warrior, scholar. And the quote comes from this book, Still Black, Still Strong, Survivors of the War Against Black Revolutionaries. This is the book. Critical read, is very thorough. The book includes not only interviews with Mumia, but also Dhoruba bin Wahad and Assata Shakur. So I highly recommend taking a gander at that. So let's get into it. So what is MOVE? Who is MOVE, and what's the genesis of MOVE? So MOVE was founded in 1972 and was a political and Black liberation organization whose principles were anti-government, anti-technology, and anti-corporation. Its creator, John Afrika, born Vincent Lepart, was a West Philadelphia native and Korean War veteran whose ideology combined Black revolutionary ideas with environmental and animal rights, as well as a back to nature movement. So I'm going to stop there before I read the last two. So just briefly understanding that MOVE was founded, it was also in Philadelphia, right? During the time, Philadelphia was highly known just for a lot of the police brutality and high violence from the police department. And having someone like John Afrika have this organization come together to not only combat the police brutality, but also speak against or speak for animal rights, as long as a back to nature movement, which we'll dive a little bit deeper into. It's just very interesting when you think about the nexus of this organization. So MOVE then purchased a home in Philadelphia at 309 North 33rd Street, which became their headquarters. In nonviolent but disruptive demonstrations, members protested at zoos, pet stores, and political rallies. The group believed in composting, homeschooling, and a diet of raw foods, and spoke out against war and police brutality. So again, it's oh, excuse my voice. It's rare that we hear about organizations that, you know, do work maybe like composting, right? Composting and homeschooling. The Black Panther Party did have freedom schools within the party, which would teach the children and teach the folks political education, such as African Black Coalition. But it's very, I think it's just important to hold on to the fact that this organization in particular practiced healthy living and also spoke for animal rights, right? Zoos, keeping animals in habitat, things of that nature, or locked up, if you would say. So moving forward, who is John Afrika? Why was he so important? And what did this man do for the people of MOVE? So Vincent Lepart was born on July 26, 1931, and was raised in the Mantua neighborhood of West Philadelphia. In 1972, Lepart changed his name to John Afrika to represent the continent where life began. John Afrika had taken the mess the system made of its people, while African people were under the influence of the system, and cleaned them up, took them away from drugs, alcohol, cigarettes, crime, disease, perversion, suicidal tendencies, manic depression, and made his people healthy, strong, and balanced. As a child, he was painfully thin and underweight. At age 9, he was transferred to a school for slow learners to learn simple trades. He would continue to struggle in school and then eventually dropped out at the age of 16. He was involved in 2 court cases, which were Africa versus Commonwealth of Philadelphia and Africa versus the State of Philadelphia. And combined, these cases were known as John Afrika versus the System by the MOVE organization, right? So again, understanding the man really behind this organization who brought the people of Philadelphia right together, the Black people, the African people, and poor and working class people as well, because although MOVE was primarily, and still is because MOVE still exists today, it's primarily Black and African people. There was some folks that helped out that were of other creeds to get the genesis of MOVE starting up. So one thing to add is that John Afrika, knowing that he struggled a lot with literacy, so it became hard for him to read to a certain extent and to write. So when he was coming up with the layout of what MOVE would be about, kind of like the Black Panther Party had the 10-point program, they had their own program. He brought in another student from the University of Philadelphia to help write out what MOVE's ideologies would be. So again, it's a collective effort of Black, poor, working class people in Philadelphia at the time. So this is our good brother John Africa, helping his people become healthy, balanced, able-bodied people so they can serve, right, and protect themselves and the people. Okay, so that's a lot, right? Let me know if I'm going too fast. Again, let me know if you have any questions or any comments, or we're going to keep on going. All right, so we got Brother Mumia. So before we dive a little bit more deeper into MOVE, I'm just going to introduce Mumia real quick so that way he's not totally at the end of the presentation. So Mumia Jamal, right? Some of us have heard this name. Maybe I read a book by him. This good brother is thorough. So on April 24th, 1954, Wesley Cook was born in Philadelphia, one of 6 children from working class parents. He changed his name to Mumia while taking a class on African cultures at Ben Franklin High School, in which he added the surname Abu Jamal, which means father of Jamal. In 1971, after the birth of his firstborn child, Jamal Cook. In 1968, at the age of 14, Mumia joins the Black Panther Party after being kicked and beaten by cops after disrupting a rally for a segregationist presidential candidate by the name of George Wallace. He became the Lieutenant of Information, putting him in charge of the organization's media relations. The FBI then places him on the COINTELPRO list, also known as the Counterintelligence list, which was the program ran by the FBI to dismantle Black liberation movements as well as deteriorate Black leaders, right? And this is a small quote by Mumia, just so we get a little bit understanding of his work. He says, "My career as a journalist began with the Black Panther newspaper in Philadelphia with York, the Ministry of Information, and on the Black Panther newspaper in Berkeley, California. There is where I learned how to write from a revolutionary perspective." So Mumia had already been doing work in journalism, doing things like just documenting what was going on in Philadelphia at the time. Because if we go back to a little bit earlier, as mentioned, Philadelphia was going, in the whole nation, right? Because this is the end of the 1960s through the 1980s. The Black Power movement was still very prevalent during this time, and just a lot of unfortunate actions against our people were happening during this time. So he learned to document what was going on around him in his immediate environment. And because of the Black Panther Party, he was able to take away from the mass media's perspective of what was going on and produce real content and revolutionary content, which equated with the emotions of the people experiencing it at the time. So moving forward, a little bit more, I'm just going to read through this really quickly. So in 1975, Mumia begins working for a series of radio stations as a media journalist, using his commentary on issues of the day, such as police brutality and systemic racism, to advocate for social change. It was 3 years later, in 1978, that he began reporting on the MOVE organization. He wrote a story about the police attack on MOVE, in which the police mistakenly shot and killed one of their own officers. Mumia was then targeted by the then racist and fascist mayor of Philadelphia, Frank Rizzo, as well as the political establishment, for fairly reporting and supporting MOVE. On July 3rd, 1982, Mumia was sentenced to life on death row by Judge Albert Sabo for allegedly shooting a police officer. At the time of the trial, Sabo presided over more death penalty cases than any judge in the history of Pennsylvania and led the nation in such convictions. Okay, so learning about all of that, right? Again, this brother started putting his work in at the early age of 14 years old. And to think about, what we're doing at 14 years old, right? I'm not aware of everyone's upbringing, but most of the time, we're children, middle school age, just living our lives, maybe with our parents, friends, trying to enjoy life. And here this brother is laying his life on the line with the possibility of being targeted, which he was, or being assassinated, which by the grace of God, the brother is still alive, right? But putting his life on the line to get the message out to the people about what was really going on, not only in Philadelphia, but nationally and internationally with the Black Panther Party and with all of the violence that was going on in this particular time period, right? So it's important to note as well that currently Philadelphia still has a high number of people on death row, and there have been several cases in Philadelphia particularly where the citizens have tried to fight for the end of the death penalty in Philadelphia, and it really began to gain traction for the end of the death penalty in that state, in Pennsylvania particularly, because of Mumia, because this man literally did absolutely nothing but was sentenced to life on death row. So we'll dive deeper into Mumia, but this is just a brief overview of who the brother is. So we're gonna keep moving forward. Okay. All right. So this is where things start to get a little heavy, okay? Which this whole thing is a little heavy. So in 1978, MOVE engaged in a 15-month standoff after then Mayor Frank Rizzo, notorious for a volatile relationship with Black residents and activist groups, ordered the group to be removed from their home. 4 years later, MOVE relocated to the quiet, largely middle-class African-American residents on Osage Avenue. After they'd spent 3 years on Osage Avenue, then Mayor Wilson Goode, who was the first Black African-American mayor of Philadelphia, gave the order to evict them. Okay, so I'm not going to speak too much on Frank Rizzo, but I want to bring him up particularly because it should be understood how just profoundly racist and covert this man was about his racism towards the people. Frank Rizzo, time and time again, not only towards MOVE, but other organizations during the time and just during the general public of Philadelphia would constantly tell his counterparts in the police department to make numerous random stops on our people, would disrupt MOVE meetings or classes during the time with armed militia, and some of it being like strong military force. Frank Rizzo was just literally a racist man, and it should be known, right? If you want to dig deeper into that, man, please do so on your own time. But it should be known that what they were dealing with was something just we can't almost imagine, right? And looking back to as MOVE engaged in a 15-month standoff, right? So let's think about in context. 15 months is what, a year and 3 months. So from August 2020 to November 2021, these men, women, and children, right? Because children were also being taught how to arm themselves in MOVE, so that way their headquarters would not get shot up, would not get torn down by the Philadelphia Police Department. It's almost hard to imagine what it would be like to stand in the front, because if you see the picture, this was almost their everyday experience. They had different shifts where some folks would stand in the daytime, take a break, switch out, men and women on this platform protecting their household. It's like standing on your front porch and having to protect your porch every single day for a year and 3 months. So just to know that the force behind this was highly violent and just the dedication of MOVE and how it was willing to put its life on the line and protect its people from the pigs at this point is just something to be commended, but also to be studied, because there should be no reason why we have to stand, or they had to stand for a year and 3 months protecting their household, right? So moving forward, I think, one second, because I'm also learning how to use this. So thank you for being patient with me. I'm going way too far in the slide. So hold on. There we go. All right. Moving back. Okay. All right, cool. So on August 8th, 1978, the Philadelphia police attempted to evict the MOVE organization from their home on Pearl Street. A standoff occurred, resulting in an eventual shootout and the death of one police officer, James J. Ramp. On May 8th, 1980, after 67 days of trial, Judge Edwin Melman found Janine, Janet, Debbie, Merle, Chuck, Delbert, Mike, Phil, and Eddie Afrika guilty of third-degree murder, conspiracy, and multiple attempts of murder and aggravated assault. They then became known as the MOVE 9. Each defendant received a sentence of 30 to 100 years in Philadelphia state and federal prisons. Okay, so going deeper just a little bit into the context of August 8th, right? So as we know before, they were ordered to evict their household on Osage Avenue. And they had just moved there, weren't there for that long a period of time, but during the time when they moved, they also would kind of protest from their window about what they wanted to see change in their community. So, for example, it's like taking a bullhorn out of your window and, in this context of time, like yelling all like Black Lives Matter or Black Power or all power to the people, right? And sometimes it will be in the early mornings of like 3 a.m., right, 5 a.m., which the residents didn't necessarily, like that as much as they didn't like them being there at all. But nevertheless, MOVE never, ever let the people that did not want to see them succeed or see the people, African and Black people, thrive in their communities, let them or deter them from the mission or the goal that they had, which was to simply empower and protect and make healthy the people of Philadelphia, right? And the death of this officer, James J. Ramp, when this happened, right, there has already been cases, this has already been studied thoroughly by, multiple people and scholars, that all 9 of them did not commit this act. James J. Ramp was actually shot by someone in his own team, right? So another officer shot James J. Ramp, but 9 people were convicted of conspiracy and multiple attempts of murder. So already right there, how is it that 9 people are convicted for 1 bullet wound for 1 person, but 9 people served a sentence of 30 to 100 years in Philadelphia state and federal prisons, right? And there should be no reason why this occurred at all and why any of them served time, right? And we'll take a look later on down the slide, because all of them did serve time. All of them have been freed. Unfortunately, 2 of our ancestors did transition into ancestors during their serving their time in Philadelphia state prisons, right? But just to know that 9 of our brothers and sisters have been convicted for kind of did not commit for one shot is something that we should just meditate upon as we analyze the ways in which this system works and the ways in which this system perpetuates violence and unnecessary acts of hate against our people, right? So I'm going to check too. I don't know if anybody said anything in this chat room or anything, just so I can make sure. Cool. Hello, family. All right, cool. All right, we doing good. Okay. So briefly, I'm just going to go through this. So On May 13, 1985, Philadelphia city leadership and the Philadelphia Police Department carried out an attack on a group of Black radical individuals and families, bombing and killing 11 MOVE members, including 5 children. Including 5 children, right? Over 500 cops and firemen showed up to MOVE headquarters around 3 in the morning and began knocking out all the windows, drilled holes in the ground above us, shot a water cannon in the basement, and were hiding and poured in smoke and tear gas and began firing over 10,000 rounds of ammunition around the entire perimeter of the house within the first 90 minutes. So this was stated by Janet and Janine Africa, who now have been released from prison. And all of these quotes that I'm reading are quotes from MOVE members, and Mumia Jamal, just so we can get a context in their words, what happened this day and what they said and what they seen through their own eyes, right? So Ramona Africa states that without any warning at all, 2 members of the Philly Police Department's bomb squad got in a Pennsylvania State Police helicopter and flew over our home and dropped a satchel containing C4 and a powerful military explosive that no municipal police department has ever had. They had to get it from the federal government, from the FBI, and without any announcement or warning or anything, they dropped that bomb on the roof of our home. And then Mumia quotes that on that day, the city, armed and assisted by the U.S. government, dropped a bomb on a house and called it law. The fire department watched the buildings ignite like matches in the desert and cut off water. The courts of the land turned a blind eye, daubed mud in their socket, and prosecuted Ramona Africa for having the nerve to survive an urban Holocaust, jailing her for the crime of not burning to death. 11 men, women, and children died. Not one killer was even charged with a misdemeanor. Okay? So this is heavy. This is heavy stuff, right? To know that the police department, right? And this is something that Brother Mumia Jamal talks about a lot in his works, in his books, about correctional officers, right? We are supposed to rely on these correctional officers to correct the crime, right? To correct the corruption that happens in our communities, right? But how is it that the correctional officers are able to gain a C4 military explosive that they shouldn't have even had at all and drop the bomb on the headquarters in the household where 5 children were inside of, along with the 11 MOVE members, right? And also, this bomb not only destroyed their house, but it destroyed 60 other houses along during that day. So even if their goal was to solely deteriorate and assassinate the people that were within the household, even if their neighbors were black, were white, Asian, whatever other creed, race, or color, they did not care enough about even the other people in these 60 other houses that burned to the ground, because they were solely so focused on destroying this organization, which was only fighting for their right to breathe, their right to school their own children, to protect themselves, their children, their people, right? And then fired over 10,000 rounds of ammunition. This is all happening in 1985, right? Some of our parents were born then or before that, right? This is not that long ago. So we have to think also in context, right? How many years have passed by since this has happened, and that this is something that is still fresh for maybe some folks, right? The feeling of some of these actions that were done. So moving forward, we're gonna watch a brief clip by Sister Janet and Janine Africa, who were just recently released from Philadelphia State Prisons. The sister talking in the video is Janet Africa, and we're just gonna listen a little bit to what she had to say about what happened that day during with her own words. So let's play this clip. Oh,
when I was in that basement, and I'm not very tall, when they shot in the smoke and the gas, you couldn't see anything, you couldn't hear anything. And I had 2 children with me. And being short as I was, I just got up. The water, they shot water, and the water came up to here on me. So what I did was like this, and the 2 children stood right here on me to keep their heads and their noses above water. And these people that were trying to kill us, the cops, the firemen, they knew there was children in that basement. They knew there was innocent people in that basement, but they kept on shooting water, they kept on shooting bullets, they kept on shooting smoke, just kept on and on and on and would not stop.
Okay. Right. So this, all of the MOVE members during the time that this happened have moved to the basement to basically just hide from everything that was happening. The sister had to literally, you know, put the children on her so that the children wouldn't drown, because when they were in the basement, I'm not sure if it was noted in the last slide, but there was water cannons being shot in the basement. So the water was filling up, rising, and you think about a water cannon, right? It's the water cannon that firefighters use to blow out wildfires, right? So imagine a huge water hose that is used to put out wildfires being shot into the basement of a household, and the power that was happening. In this interview as well, which I would highly recommend everybody watch on their own accord or time, Sister Jamal in Africa has stated that the water was shooting so fast that one of the children had been blasted to the wall because the power and the force of the water cannon was so powerful. And it was also taking out parts of the wall as it was being blasted, right? So this is something that we just to think about and to visualize, right, what was happening during that time. And these are just some pictures of the aftermath and of the day that this had occurred on May 13th, 1985. As you can see, stated before that 60 other houses were burned to the ground or were burned and destroyed during this process. And it's just unbelievable, right? The police department's still out there armed, walking around. And in these pictures, we have on the left-hand side, a news, from a news article, which shows Delbert Africa, who was a member of the MOVE organization, being dragged by the Philadelphia State Police Department, being kicked, and being tortured, right? And in an interview with Mumia Abu Jamal, he had stated that Rodney King was not the first male to be, or the first person to be broadcasted on national TV in reference to police brutality. It was actually Delbert Africa. And this is not to say or to say, well, who's more relevant or anything, but it just to put into context, right? When people are watching and nationally broadcasted event of our people that is happening, Delbert Africa in 1985 was being shown all over the world, right? What the police was doing. And there was no remorse by the mass media, who's supposed to be documenting the times, right? Documenting real news, is showing this, their own kind, their own people, their own people doing this to our folks. So this is just a little bit, again, some pictures of what had happened during that day. And moving forward, we're going to go a little bit deeper into Mumia, but I just want everyone to just remember the legacy of MOVE and to really meditate upon the genesis, right? The genesis of MOVE. Because although their headquarters was destroyed, 9 of them went to prison. All of them served time, 44 years, 4 decades in prison or more. And still to this day, having the organization thrive and be held by those who have been freed and other people that have joined since then, because of John Africa, right? Because of this brother who was also murdered in the household. John Africa, unfortunately, was assassinated in that bombing because he was in the house with all of the other 11 brothers, sisters, and children. Everyone that was in that organization was dedicated to the teachings of John Africa, right? Raw living, being healthy, sustainable living, homeschooling, teaching our children our own. All of these things that are vital to our livelihoods as people. So long live MOVE, long live John Africa. And it's just, that's all that, there is to say as of now in regards to MOVE. So diving back into, and again, please let me know if you want to go back to a slide, if you have a comment, anything to say. So we're going to go deeper into Mumia right now. Please unmute your mic as well if you have something to say, because I'm still learning how to use this, so I can't really see right now the chat room or anything. All right, cool. So in 1981, Mumia is elected president of the Philadelphia Association of Black Journalists. That same year, on December 9th, he is found at the scene of a shooting of police officer Daniel Faulkner. Mumia is wounded by shots from Faulkner's gun and is severely beaten by police at the scene of the crime and at the hospital. Okay, so before I read the last slides, just to give a brief context about Mumia, because if we don't know a little bit about Mumia, Mumia is still alive to this day. This brother is still in Philadelphia's state prisons, and he's been in there for 38 years. And during the day that Mumia was shot and this whole occurrence had happened on December 9th, he was also a taxi driver because he was, making some extra money while he was also doing journalism work. And when Mumia was driving his taxi cab, he stopped when he saw his brother's car. And he had seen his brother, William Cook, having a confrontation with Faulkner, the police officer. So of course, seeing his brother out there in a interaction with the police, got off the car to go walk up to see what was going on with his brother. And during that whole time, Faulkner ended up being shot in the back of the head. And while that was occurring, had shot Mumia in the stomach. So just to have some context about what was happening that day, it wasn't just like it was just random, right? Like he just out of nowhere got shot, right? He was checking on his brother, who was stopped first by Faulkner because he was doing traffic stops. And then it was then that Mumia had been beaten and shot by Daniel Faulkner, who passed away. Who cares about him, right? So that's what the hell he got. All right. So in 1995, Pennsylvania Governor Tom Ridge signs Mumia's death warrant, which has sparked a massive anti-death penalty protest in which 7,000 people forces Ridges to stop the planned execution. Between 1995 and 2012, the Philadelphia Supreme Court, headed by former District Attorney Ron Castile, denies 4 appeals filed by Mumia's attorneys. In 2001, Federal District Judge William H. Yon Jr. throws out the death sentence for Mumia, but upholds his murder conviction. The claim of racial bias is not granted, but is affirmed and certified as appealable, which allows it to be considered by the U.S. Court of Appeals. So, as stated before in the earlier slides, Mumia ended up being charged on death row for absolutely no reason, other than, him being a journalist and being affiliated with the Black Panther Party, and daring to support MOVE by documenting what was happening during that time, was put on death row. And time and again, the district attorneys and his attorneys, had tried to get this man off death row, which eventually, after the protests, right, after many people, and not just in the city of Philadelphia, but internationally, because it has to be understood that the case of Mumia had reached all the way to France, right? And in France, actually, they had named a street during that time by Mumia, which in that time was a big deal, right? Because so many people had so much anger and hate against Mumia because the mass media had framed him to be this murderer, this someone that just hated the people, and they framed him to be someone that he was not. So this reached internationally to other countries where they had this feeling about Mumia, which was from false pretenses, but yet the people had made sure they made a statement to stand for Mumia, which is just something to think about, because this didn't just reach the United States, the United Snakes of America, right? This was international, and it still is international. So moving forward, by the way, this book is Live from Death Row. The picture on this side is from the book Live from Death Row, which is also just important to note, because during the time that Mumia had served in in prison, his sentence grew longer because he dared to write this book and several other books while he was in prison. But particularly this book was so important because he talks about, the experiences of not only himself on death row, but other brothers and sisters, other brothers on death row in his prison that were going through this. And in the Philadelphia state prisons, there's a specific law or basically where you're allowed as a prisoner to write for other people, but they would not let Mumia write for mass media at the time. So every time he would dare to write something for a newspaper, an article, a book, he would get more time added to his sentence, which again, he was sentenced for the death of a police officer that had already been proven was not shot by him. So something to think about, right? Being continuously on death row, or being harassed by the police for daring to write a book about the truth. Okay. So these are two pictures of Mumia Protest in 2020. There was actually a rally or protest, what have you, July 4th of this year in Philadelphia. So people again are still fighting for the release of this brother. And I'll read the quote in the photo, which says, "You pay for the killers to kill you in the name of a bogus, twisted law, and then pay for the state that defends them. Something is terribly wrong here, and it's the system itself. Until this system is changed, nothing is changed. We'll just be out in the streets again, chanting a different name." And this is from Mumia, still highly relevant today, unfortunately. And down below, it's written that Mumia was only 27 years old when he was sentenced to life on death row in 1982. It's been 38 long years that Mumia has been calling out the inequities of this racist, imperial, neocolonial American regime. He has published dozens of articles, essays, and books during this time in Philadelphia state prisons. Despite all of the pushback, our people are still fighting for his potential release by any means necessary. Okay, so 38 years. Almost the same amount of years as the majority of the MOVE members who served 40 plus years in Philadelphia state prisons. And during his time serving, he had also developed an illness which had been healed, but over time it had fluctuated with his health. And the prison had given him quote unquote antibiotics, which were supposed to help the brother, but didn't really do much for his condition. But by the grace of the Most High and John Africa, he is doing better and had started to recover. So thankfully the brother is still here, but that's just something to note as what he was going through during and what he is going through during these times. So we're almost there, family. Thank you for being present, and hopefully you're taking notes, writing some things down, jogging it in your memory, and just really taking time to incorporate all of this into our brains, right? Because I know this is a lot of information, but it's critical that we take the time to remember MOVE and Mumia. So in this slide, we have our brothers and sisters, our MOVE brothers and sisters who had been released from prison. So first, on the top left-hand corner, we have Debbie Africa, who was the first one to be released from Philadelphia State Prisons. On the second one, we have Debbie and Mike Africa, who are married. They were together since they had been tried and convicted of murder during the beginning of the whole trial. So this picture just shows both of them together after they both had been released. Third, we have Eddie Africa, who was the third member to be released from MOVE. Underneath, we have Janet and Janine Africa, which we've seen in the previous video. Then we have our brother Chuck Africa and Phil Africa. So these are just our brothers and sisters who had been released after 4 decades and just serving their time. But as you can see in the photos of Phil and Chuck Africa, them still, Chuck Africa and Eddie Africa, pardon me, still speaking, right, about what had happened to MOVE and what's going on with Mumia, even after they had served those long years. So it's very telling, and it's very mighty of them to still be fighting for and fighting against this system and speaking their truth and telling the story of what happened that day on May 13th, 1985, even after they served their time, right? Because we can only imagine serving all of that time in the prisons, having all of that negative energy on us and still having the capacity to tell them their stories. So these are our good brothers and sisters. And again, unfortunately, some of our brothers and sisters had transitioned into ancestors during their time serving. And so we have a sister, Merle Africa, who was a mighty sister, was one of the teachers and who took care of the children while she was serving in MOVE with John Africa and others, who who transitioned in 1998, the year that some of us were born, the year I was born. And then on the top, we have Phil Africa, and at the bottom we have, the top is Delbert Africa, and the bottom is Phil Africa. So these are all just younger pictures from when they were serving in MOVE at the households. So just want to give a brief, moment of silence for our ancestors. Ashe. And they, from their last breath, right? Delbert Africa being the last one to transition. He actually transitioned earlier this year, in January, during the African Black Coalition's 2020 conference this year, where the news had broke out that he had transitioned. So ashe to our brothers and sisters for all the work that they have done.
Real quick, you said that's Delbert Africa, and who were the other two?
Yes, Phil Africa and Merle Africa.
Thank you.
Of course. Thank you for speaking, because I cannot see the chat room right now, brother, so thank you. Okay, so we're towards the end of the slideshow. Thank y'all again for just sticking here, being here, and being present. So of course, as stated before, our brother Mumia is still in prison today, unfortunately. But during this time, right, of Black August, a time to not celebrate and not gather and have a party and say, well, it's Black August, right? This is a time of critical study, analysis, and time to meditate upon our ancestors, warriors, and members of revolutionary movements, to take the time to just dedicate to them. So if you want to ever write to Mumia, write a letter, I would highly encourage that you do so, just even if you want to, you know, express maybe you had read a book by him, or maybe you had seen this slideshow and, you know, like, I learned about you through African Black Coalition. And, you know, I just wanted to say, you know, thank you for all your continuous years of service. Just anything you want to write to him, I would highly suggest that you take a screenshot, take a moment to write down the address, which is Smart Communication /PADOC, and the name Mumia Abu Jamal AM, MA 8335, CI Mahoney, with the PO Box 33028, St. Petersburg, Florida 33733. So again, take a moment if you want to screenshot or write down the address. Please feel free to do so. If you ever want to write a letter to our good brother. And I will read the quote at the bottom from Brother Mumia from the book Still Black, Still Strong, which states, "True political action is learning about the world around you, or teaching others about the world around you on a daily basis, because everything has political interaction," right? And we know this to be true, which is why we are tapping, you know, some of you guys, and why we're all tapping into this PE course right now, gaining the political education that we need, and not the electoral political education, particularly of what to do in this regime, right? But the overall understanding of the political interactions that we go through as African and Black people here that are essential for us to realize, so our consciousness is aware of what is really happening under this regime, right? So that is basically the end of the slideshow. Long live John Africa, free all political prisoners. And these are the pictures of Brother John Africa at the bottom right corner. And, you know, just some other further pictures of what has happened to MOVE and Brother Mumia. And these are the sources that I had gained the information from, as well as some of the books. But I will stop sharing the screen now.
Okay. Y'all can't hear it, but, you know, please give a Sister Honey Blu a round of applause wherever you may find yourself. We appreciate you, Sister. Thorough as always. So thank you. So what I'll do, just to sort of wrap things up, I'm gonna put a link to just a real brief post-evaluation. If everyone who is tuned in right now, if you could just take a moment to complete that, it really helps us as ABC really learn how to improve our programming, you know, what works, what doesn't work, right? Just the overall areas of improvement. We certainly don't think that, you know, we are perfect in terms of our programming, so your input is definitely valuable. So I put the link in the chat box right now. So please click on that and take a moment to do so. Let me see, someone says, Lauren said, thank you so much. Question for anyone who may know. Great question, Lauren. So I reached out to the, I believe it's a group of folks that are like serving as the, what do you call it, like the liaison for Joshua Williams, probably about a month ago. I haven't heard anything back yet, so I'm not sure. But definitely as soon as we learn something, we'll definitely, you know, put the information out there for everyone else to know about. But thank you for asking that. And then what I'll do is, can we get going to the video of Janet? Yes. So what I was going to say is that at the end of once we're done here, you all will receive an email. You all receive an email from myself with these slides. So, you know, in case you might have missed a slide or you just wanted to have them for your own reference, you'll have that. So yes, you'll have the video included as well. Honey Blu, did you want to leave us with any final words?
Yes, of course. Again, I just want to say thank you guys so much for just being here, being present today, bearing with me, as this is one of the first times I've taught a class or taught something like this. So I appreciate your patience. I know it could be a lot, but I thank you. Also, before we end, I just wanted to share some other books by Mumia, just in case anyone had, wanted to read anything else by him, some recommended books. So, of course, we had the Still Black, Still Strong, which was stated in the beginning. This one right now that I'm currently reading is called Death Blossoms. I don't know if you guys can see that, but this is basically just a anthology of his writings over time. So it includes some poems by him. It includes just some of his reflections on different topics. It's a really great book just to peek into the mind of Mumia on different things that he talks about. And lastly, I would recommend All Things Censored by Mumia Jamal, which is a collection of his writings from death row, but just kind of the more like critical ones that are kind of to be studied and understood. So there's just the 3 books I wanted to just share with you all, just in case you guys wanted to do your own research and study. But there's so much that I didn't get into when it came to Mumia's case, because it's so complex that it would be almost impossible to add everything in there. So I highly recommend that you just do your own deep diving research, watch documentaries and all of that. But tuning into this class was a just a great start to all of that. So I appreciate you. We appreciate you for tuning in, and I love each and every one of you guys. Thank you so much.
So once again, that is Honey Blu. Thank you for taking the time and the energy to do this, and to you all that have participated. Tonight, we thank you. We say peace to you all. Don't miss tomorrow. It's relentless. It's nonstop pressure. Tomorrow night, 7 o'clock via Zoom, we will be having our 3rd rendition of hard teaching. The topic is building our Black nation. So that's tomorrow, 7 o'clock. Tune in for sure. It's going to be just as thorough as tonight. We keep the pressure applied for sure. So once again, thank you, Honey Blu. And then to all you that have participated tonight, we will say peace and Black power to you all ready for the revolution.
Peace and Black power, y'all.